Hello, everyone. It is time for another live video. For those of you that are maybe joining us for the first time, this is Sam over at the Foot Whisperer Reflexology Institute in Tampa, Florida, USA. And these videos are foot reading videos that I do to demonstrate the art and science of foot reading and also educate my students who are internationally located all over the globe, who are currently enrolled in my certification course or who are just interested about foot reading and reflexology theory. And this is for you all. So I'm super excited. Thanks for jumping on board. For those of you who are joining me live, welcome. I will have the chat open, so feel free to ask any questions if you'd like. But on that note, let me share my screen real quick and we will proceed. F5. Awesome. Okay, so here is the deal. We have these feet. Now, for those of you who have been following the foot reading videos, you know that I always accept foot reading submissions. I am so happy to read all of your feet. That is something that I love to do. But more recently, we've had a lot of activity in our Facebook group, which I'll talk about in a second. And so the issue has become not just can you read my feet, but can you actually show me how you would read the feet and talk about what is going on in the feet. Hi, Miro, who's tuning in. It's so glad to have you watching. And let's kind of talk about that from a foot reading perspective. So this work is based off of the Foot Reading and Reflexology online community Facebook group. We just passed our 400th member this week, so we are growing. The group is totally new since September of now last year. So we're really skyrocketing in terms of membership, and everybody's having a great time. So if you're not already a part of that group, go ahead and join. And so the whole basis of these videos are basically telling you what I see, which is priority number one. So taking these pictures that I've posted in the group, and I've let everybody in the group kind of comment and jump on and give their kind of pre-assessment before I break down the feet from my angle. I'm now going to tell you what it is that I see. So what's even more interesting is that you, if you've been a part of the group and are following the channel, you've gotten a chance to get a sneak peek at these feet to see what you see before I tell you what I see. So that's the whole goal, is to like train your brain on what to look for in terms of foot reading and to really get you to understand these principles without my help. And then we can talk and we can discuss and get all these things out of the way. Okay. Now, here's the sticking point that a lot of my students start to express when they start to delve into the art and science of foot reading, is not only what to say, but also what not to say. So we're going to cover both. We're going to talk about not only what I see, but also what would I tell the client and how would I tell it to them, which can be really interesting. And also knowing when to keep your mouth shut, knowing what not to say to aggravate the client, but also knowing what's relevant and knowing how to not sidetrack yourself. Miro is saying that learning massage and anatomy, but just started with this stuff, will pay attention. So great to have you on the chat. Thanks so much. And then point number 3 with this whole situation, this foot reading challenge, as we called it, is what to do about it. Not just understanding what you see in the feet, not just being able to vocalize it into words to convey feedback to the client, but also what do you do about it? What does the client then take that information? How do they take that information and run with it? How do they implement lifestyle changes to really break down this idea of foot reading and make it practical, make it applicable to their daily lives so that they can recover, so that they can use the infinite intelligence that's present within their body to direct their life in a more therapeutic way? That is what to do about it. Or as we would call them in our foot reading program, the methods of balancing. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Okay, let's jump into the first set of pictures with these feet. Now, what you're going to notice is that these feet look a little bit gnarly, and I'm showing you kind of the pictures that are most gnarly first, and there's a reason for that. So first, we're going to talk about what I'm not going to tell the client, but what you need to be able to identify as a foot reader, because it is still very relevant and very important. I very much talked about this in the last foot reading video on December 29th, 2017. So make sure to look at that video, especially in terms of like what markers to pick up on before you actually delve into the conversation, because it can be really, really important not to kind of trip over a landmine before you even get the conversation started. Okay, so these pictures of the feet that we're about to look at, some things that you should know right off the bat. First and foremost, do you see that little black dot? That little black dot is what's known as a seed. It is a seed within the overly calloused nail. Now, a lot of people will call this callus formation of the nail a fungus. That is technically not true. If you've seen a true toenail fungus, it is black, it is disgusting, it looks infected. Now, that is different from what we're seeing here. What we're seeing here is a callousing and raising of the nail, as opposed to a true fungal infection. So we need to be aware of that. But this seed, this kind of core infected part, this is the start of a toenail fungus. So this is something that is a little bit more problematic, something that does tell us that there's a lot of circulatory stagnation in the feet physically, but this is much more significant from a mental emotional perspective, and I'm going to tell you why. So this, because it is a fourth toe, right foot issue, it tells us that this person is struggling with past thoughts about family and relationships, and that there is a very deep, dark seed thought that they're still holding on to mentally that is preventing them from moving forward. So that little piece of information right off the bat is something to kind of red flag your client with. And I talked about this a lot in the last video. Like, this lets us know that there is significant mental baggage that needs to be understood and needs to be very compassionately worked with before moving forward. That is a must. So that little landmine needs to be identified. Also, potentially sinus issues on the right side, just from a physical correspondence, since we always want to give both the physical and the mental emotional side of the equation. So just marker number one to identify, but we're not going to address it because it is a little bit too volatile. Marker number two, we see this little slash. I love that. We're going to see actually a couple slashes in these feet. So whenever we see a slash like this, when an area looks like it is cut, like it has been strategically, like with a scalpel, just cut into, that is very much what is happening both from a physical and a mental emotional side when we go to assess the reflexes of the feet. This is vertical zone 5, or in line with the fifth toe, horizontal zone 1 in the toe section. So this is how the lower body has influenced the neck, and it has influenced the neck specifically on the right side to become very weak, especially in the head space. It's caused a lot of kind of hollowness to develop on the right side of the face and neck area. So this is giving us some idea that there are some lower body compensation patterns that are affecting the upper body. Mentally and emotionally, this means that past thoughts about this person's sense of security and how they were moving forward have really left them mentally depleted, very much adding to this idea of the mental baggage being present. So just another red flag that we need to be cautious of, because a mark like this takes significant energy and attention from the body in order to both manifest but also keep around. Okay, marker number 3, on the left foot, we can see that the fourth toenail is also thick, rigid, and discolored. Interesting how the fourth toe on both feet is undergoing this symptomology, right? So what this means is that not only has past family thoughts been an issue, but currently it is still an issue because we are jumping from right to left. Physically, this means that not just the right sinuses are affected, although they are worse because obviously we have that black seed on the right side, but not the left, but it is definitely present on the left side as well. Also, we're noticing a trend of lower GI stuff when we see both vertical zone 4 issues present. So we might find, well, I know we're going to find, I'm hinting around, I'm dancing around the bush because I don't want to give it all away, but we are going to find some lower digestive markers that are affecting sinuses as well. But interestingly enough, that this person has started to release those past patterns of mental family baggage because the nail isn't as raised, isn't as discolored, and does not have that seed on the left side. So they have already either consciously or unconsciously started their mental healing process. We just need to be respectful that there is still a lot of tripwiry baggage that needs to be cautiously dealt with when discussing the markers present within this client's feet. Okay? Okay. So why wouldn't I talk about these things? That's a really important aspect to understand. First and foremost, bringing up past stress can be really difficult. So difficult that it may shut the client down instead of opening them up. So it's important to understand that with markers like these that indicate such a coagulation of mental stress, it's not my job to point out, yo, client, you're stressed as hell. That is not helpful at this point. So bringing up the mental baggage and accusing them of having that mental baggage, even if you say it in the nicest way, it can still come out to the client like you're telling them that they're a hot mess. And that is not what we want to do, especially with a client that already has layers that we need to peel back. So I'm not going to bring it up in this kind of theoretical foot reading session because there are other things that we can focus on, which brings me to point number 2. So the root cause does not need to be excavated at this time. As far as the intensity of the markers present, I'd say that that family baggage is probably marker number 1 in terms of intensity, but I'm not going to have it as part of my top 3. But it is definitely the root cause, that mental stress, that past family baggage. It does not need to be excavated at this time due to the fact of compliance. So if a client comes in and every time that they come in to see you, they feel like they're getting a tooth pulled because every time that they come to see you, you keep bringing up the past, bringing up the past, bringing up the past. At a certain point, this no longer becomes therapeutic. So although it may be a root cause, we need to understand that in order to get the client to comply with the session, enjoy the experience, and not feel like we are raking their soul over the coals every time that they come in, we're going to lighten the conversation a little bit and not bring up those deeper, darker markers that we see. Okay. And point number 3, why I wouldn't say it, is to focus on the actionable present, which is very, very easy to do with these feet, as we will see as we go along. But to limit time on this video, we'll just save that for the end. Okay. So here are the dorsal views of these feet. Okay. Let you take a quick look. And there are some things here that we're going to talk about in terms of the markers that didn't make the cut. But I wanted to point out 2 markers, well, 1.5 really, 1.5 markers that are essential for these feet. And here's number 1. Number 1 marker, pop tendons. This is marker number 1. And there's strategy behind this. Why is this marker number 1, people? Think about it. So pop tendons on the dorsal surface here, and what would be the dorsal surface of horizontal zone 2, represent the rhomboids, traps, and upper back muscles being literally pulled super duper tight. This person is experiencing mid-back tension like nobody's business. Okay. So as a body worker, this person would probably come in, besides sinus issues, would probably come in for upper back spasms. That's normally what I would call this marker as, is that knot in the upper back or that tension in the upper back. Maybe it turns into a headache as well, but that upper back tension that just won't quit. Okay, that's what those pop tendons represent. Also, it's a really common marker, not necessarily common in terms of like everybody has it, but common in terms of it is a neutral, safe, and physically oriented marker that really gets the client to think, how did they know that I have upper back tension just by looking at my feet if I didn't tell them that in the first place? So it kind of catches them off guard. It's kind of like an icebreaker marker. It doesn't dive into the depths of their soul. It keeps the conversation nice and light, but just creepily accurate enough to get them to start to take you seriously. So there's strategy in terms of why I chose this marker first, and it's because it's easy, it's safe, but it does carry some very relevant information for you as the foot reader to convey to your client, hey, I know what I'm doing and I mean business. Okay. One of you in the actual comments in the foot reading group, Foot Reading and Reflexology online community group, talked about how this person is shouldering the burden, or they want to be perceived as shouldering the burden. 100 points for you. That is totally accurate. So when we see things on the dorsal surface that aren't present on the plantar surface, that means that it's different from what the world is seeing versus what's actually happening inside. On the surface, this person is tight as a drum, and they want to be seen as very regimented and very orderly. We're going to see a very different situation on the plantar surface. So on the surface, or on the plantar surface. So on the dorsal surface, everything looks like they have a strict hold, a tight rein on everything. Not so much, we're going to find out. So definitely appropriate to say, you know, it seems like you're wanting everybody to think that you have your stuff together, when really that's not the case, although that is treading into some accusatory deeper territory. So keeping it light, keeping it easy. Marker number 1, pot tendons. Marker number 2, part 1, or like marker number 2.5, toenail discoloration. So we can see not on the right side, but on the left side, that we have more of that interesting toenail discoloration and raisedness and callousing. We can also see a sliver of darkness in there as well. Another marker of mental stagnation and sinus issues. This is only part 1 of the marker though. So it doesn't end here, because we have another marker that's going to complete the assessment. But I wanted to point this out on the dorsal aspect before we get into kind of the completeness of this marker, because this color change on the big toe on the left side is definitely relevant. From a stress perspective, it means that more recently the mental stress has started to shift, which we saw that same pattern on the nails, on the kind of looking directly at the nails. We saw that right fork toe having that seed, and then on the left foot, that fork toe not having that seed. So there is mental cloud shifting that's happening here, but that's not the end of the story. So let's take that and go over to the next slide real quick. Okay, so marker number 2, part 2, discolored callousing. Interesting. So whenever we have yellowness in the body, for those of you that have studied anatomy, we know that yellowing in the tissues is produced by a condition that we call jaundice. Fabulously interesting metaphorical relationship between the yellowing discoloration of the callousing and the nails and somebody being jaundiced, jaded, not being able to filter, or as Jane Sheehan talks about in her book, those colors being the literal color of yellow or urine, somebody being pissed off because they're literally just not processing through their stress enough. All is that this person is literally getting jaundiced or cheesed off or pissed off. There's just too much happening on their physical, but also internal mental emotional space that is really backing up at this point, to the tune of they're starting to snap at people. Maybe they're starting to not be able to sleep really well. They're starting to just be irritable or irritated all the time. And there are multiple markers to suggest that this person really just needs to find a better way of dealing with their issues, because it's starting to really affect not only their physical health in terms of, we can see the discoloration here really hitting the sinuses hard, really hitting the chest hard. So maybe even like a chronic respiratory sinus lung bouncing back and forth issue, but also from a mental emotional standpoint, like their stress is starting to really bug them and really settle deep into the head and heart space, which is not something that we like to see. So marker number 2 is this overall mental emotional stagnation that needs to be addressed. Marker number 3, digestive weighting and lining. Okay, so we can see how, especially in what we would call horizontal zone 4 or the proximal arch, there's a lot of waving. You can see like little bubbles and waves in the tissues, but also some pretty intense lining. So whenever we see waves in the feet or the tissues of the extremities, it basically means that there's choppy waters, that there's turbulence underneath the surface. For the lower GI area, that means that this person is having some lower digestive discomfort, some maybe like irritable bowel syndrome type stuff. But also the lines make us think that there's some fatigue, some weakness. Overall, this is the combination of waving and lining that I see in people who have malabsorption issues. They're not absorbing the nutrient content of their food, which is leading to just systemic weakness, systemic imbalances. So marker number 3, the digestive waving and lining, really points to this idea that what I think because of the stress, this person isn't digesting their food. Not necessarily that they're physically not digesting their food. There are markers for some digestive upsets. We can see that slash, which didn't make the cut, which we'll talk about. But this idea that this person is really having some gut turbulence. And there's a very specific method of balancing that we're going to address to hit all of these markers at once. Okay, so those are my top 3. Now, what didn't make the cut? Let's talk about this horizontal zone 3 slash. So some of you actually got this wrong. There were a couple people in the group who had posted that this is horizontal zone 2, vertical zone 1. This is horizontal zone 3, vertical zone 1. So it is underneath the ball of the foot, underneath the diaphragm guideline. It's right at that diaphragm guideline, but the slash is largely in horizontal zone 3. So brushing up on your mapping might be a little bit important for those of you that might have gotten that mixed up in terms of mapping, but this is a direct stomach liver weakness issue. So the stomach and liver have become weak, but here's the thing, I'm not seeing a lot of damage or dysfunction otherwise. I'm seeing more waving and lining in that horizontal zone 4 lower GI reflex issue. So I didn't include horizontal zone 3 slashes because I think it's the malabsorption that caused the liver and stomach weakness to begin with, which is interesting. If we wanted to think of it mentally and emotionally, it's family stress that caused career stress, not career stress causing family stress. But here's the deal. I really do think it's a physical issue. I really do think that it's lower GI turbulence instead of family drama, just because we are seeing enough family drama in the toes. I don't need to re-emphasize that stressor in horizontal zone 5 on the or zone 4 on the plantar surface. I really think that this marker is more about the body vocalizing that the absorption of food isn't taking place properly. So horizontal zone 1, dry peeling, some of you definitely nailed this. This is a marker of mental exhaustion, mental fatigue, sinus issues again, but this idea that this person is trying to shed their thoughts, but they're not really getting anywhere with it. But we can see that they kind of are getting somewhere with it. It's just not happening probably as quickly as they would like they want to press the fast forward button on their therapeutic process and their karmic lessons, but it's just really not happening too much. So that's why I really didn't want to drive home this idea of, yo, you're stressed. You know, that's not the reason why a foot reading consultation takes place, to echo, you know, what the client already knows. We know that they're stressed. They know that they're stressed. But it's not our idea to say, oh, look, here's another marker for mental stress. That's not helpful to a certain point. So that's why those 2 markers didn't make the cut, is because there are other things that we need to focus on to better serve this client. Okay, so here's the methods of balancing. So for those of you, again, that have been watching the videos or that have been following me, the methods of balancing, the idea behind it is that we don't just want to pick apart this client. We also want to give them guidance as far as what their body is asking for to move forward. And methods of balancing helps us do that. So it's basically the suggestions that we would use to counterbalance the markers. Now, some of you have realized that I'm a big fan of 3s, and for every marker in past videos, I've tried to include a method of balancing. But here's the deal. There are enough signs in these feet for me to only give you one method of balancing. And the method of balancing that I'm going to give you is massage therapy. Now, some of you may think that I am biased because I am a body worker and because I started in massage therapy. But let me explain the rationale as far as why massage therapy is the method of balancing for this person. And I'm not talking about massage therapy like this person needs a deep tissue massage. I'm talking about a Swedish style relaxation, drool coming out of your mouth, pampering essential oils, like wrapped in hot towel loveliness with a cushioned table and fluffy uh, top sheets and an adjustable face cradle and a massage therapist that speaks in a soothing voice and maybe even a 90-minute session. I mean, this person really needs, based on their markers, first, they would rationalize it because they have that upper back issue that we talked about as marker number one. Marker number two, the emotional stagnation. They need that dark, quiet room to decompress, and a massage therapy environment gives them that. But marker number three is where it really gets interesting. Malabsorption due to stress can be rectified with massage therapy. So if they do integrate a once a week relaxation massage routine, or maybe once every 2 weeks, during that 1 hour, their nervous system gets the reset button hit, and their parasympathetic responses, their digestive responses, start to calm down and start to be able to have the strength and the wherewithal to digest and extract the nutrients that are being put in. So that is why massage therapy is the best method of balancing for this person, not to mention that we all know the issues are in the tissues. So if they wanted to find a massage therapist specifically that maybe has some cranial background, maybe has some visceral manipulation background, maybe can do a little bit of abdominal massage, maybe can do a little bit of craniosacral with some sinus work to really release some of this stuff, maybe knows a little bit of energy work, all would be very appropriate to help this person just really release and then pick themselves back up by their bootstraps and really get that next phase of their life started from a cleared Etch-a-Sketch point of view. That is the best way to summarize what is needed. They need to really understand that the physical tension in their upper back is caused by deep-seated stress, to release that deep-seated stress, and then to also facilitate the peristaltic action and the gut intelligence that has been compromised due to the long-term effects of that stress. That is the method of balancing that I have chosen. Very, very interesting approach, but also very simple approach, because again, this person has a lot of deeper issues. If we get them on a simple regimen, it will unwind those issues over time. We don't need to send them to a counselor right away. We don't need to kind of air out their dirty laundry. We need to get them relaxed and get their body pumping again so that it can filter and process the deeper layers as they come up, not, scraping them all out at once. So that's my logic there. Okay, so that's it. That was your foot reading video. For those of you who are in the foot reading and reflexology online community, let me know what you think and let me know how you did. Let me know if you have any additional questions, and we will talk about it either here in the comments on YouTube or in the group on Facebook. So first and foremost, if you haven't subscribed already to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Love you all. We're just about to hit 800 subscribers, getting close to that first 1,000. So I appreciate you all. Some of you are laughing because in a couple months we'll probably be way past that because so many people are interested in foot reading and reflexology right now. Two, if you're not already a member of the Foot Reading and Reflexology online community group, make sure to join that group because that's where the action is happening. Some of you are following me on Instagram at Foot Whisperer Sam. Some of you are following the Foot Whisperer Reflexology Institute on Facebook. But that private group, that Foot Reading and Reflexology online community, is where the dialogue is happening, is where the pictures are being posted, is where the hot seat really is right now. So subscribe to that group and we'll talk. If you wanted to buy my book, some of you know I'm a published author. I wrote Foot Reading of Reflexology Primer on Foot Assessment. That is the book that's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all major online retailers, as well as ebook formats as well. Feel free, if you wanted to study the markers, study more about foot reading, as well as look up other foot reading books. Tons of resources out there now, much more than when I started. And stay tuned. We just finished the launch of our foot reading online certification course. So that is closed until August. And for the 12-month program, that won't be opening up until 2019. So that is definitely off the table for now, but you can still interact. I've got tons of online resources. We do webinars like this through the YouTube channel all the time. All of that is posted within the Facebook group. So just stay tuned, follow me, and follow the links in the description below, and we will talk about it. Okay, and I think that is, yep, that is the end of the presentation. So let me just flip around real quick, and we will see each other one more time. So thank you for watching the video. I hope that it was valuable for you. Again, make sure to connect with me. Don't let the conversation end here. If you're interested in reflexology and foot reading theory, lots of exciting stuff happening on the channel, on social media right now, with foot reading becoming more and more prominent. So share the video as well. Like if you know somebody who would find this valuable, maybe who has the same markers that you saw in the video, lots of information about how the body's innate intelligence can be decoded and understood and worked with, especially through the feet and other extremities. So for now, thank you all for jumping in the chat and posting your questions as we went, but I will let you get back to your lives, and I will talk to you later.